In your opening statement, Minister, you said that 40% of the ATIPs are not completed within the legally required time. Now, I appreciate that you said that you wouldn't make excuses, but I'll ask you a different question then. What percentage of unlawful delay would you consider acceptable?
I think that the standard is well set, and we work very hard to achieve it. I've acknowledged that with almost 38.27% of those not meeting that standard is unacceptable, and improvements must be made. Okay. I think we aim towards 100%. That's what the law requires.
Right. Okay. Thank you. And of course, your government, and you campaigned on a promise in 2015 to be the most open and transparent government in Canadian history. 8 years later, you are almost 40% of your ATIPs are unlawfully delayed.
They're not meeting the standard that is required, and I've talked about the steps that we are taking in order to work towards meeting that standard.
Back to some of Mr. Bezan's, some alarming information came out in his questions. Your report says that there are only 3 ATIPs that are more than 5 years old still outstanding. Mr. Matthews thought maybe the number was 5, and yet Mr. Bezan has 4 himself. So, we're left to wonder, how accurate is the report that you are publicly providing to Canadians about ATIPs? Are there in fact many more than just the 3 to 5 that may be outstanding? Or has Mr. Bezan been singled out for non-response to his ATIPs?
I'm not sure we have time or resources to single out Mr. Bezan. However, as I've already offered to him, if he provides me with the information on his requests, we will, first of all, determine their status and compare it against the existing data.
Okay, the information is public. These are ATIPs. This is not something that should require a televised committee hearing with the minister to sort out. These are old requests for access to information, just like any member of the public should be able to file.
Well, and I'm grateful that Mr. Bezan brought it to my attention this morning, because it's the first time I've learned that he had 4 outstanding ATIP requests. I have undertaken to him and this committee that I'll look at those to see their status.
When we say outstanding, we're just talking about the ones that have been outstanding since 2019 or earlier. There are a lot more than just 4, but these are the ones that are in an almost hopelessly delayed situation. Are you able to assure this committee and assure Canadians that these 4 ATIPs of Mr. Bezan's really are the only ATIPs from 2019 or earlier that your department has failed to process?
And again, as I've undertaken, when Mr. Bezan presents me with that information, I'll compare it against our records and speak to the Deputy Minister. He's indicated that he's aware of 5. I haven't seen that data, but I'd like to see Mr. Bezan's reports, and we'll compare it against the data that exists.
So you're certain that there are no journalists, no academics, no researchers, no members of the public, no victims of sexual assault, no other members of the public that also may have outstanding ATIPs?
No, I've actually read, as Ms. Matheson shared with us, there are a number of journalists complaining about outstanding records as well. It's one of the reasons I've said in my opening remarks that I acknowledge that more work needs to be done, and we are working through the processes to improve our response to ATIP requests.
Okay. How else would you explain that of all of the thousands and thousands of people that file ATIPs, that an opposition member of Parliament seems to be the only one that has ATIPs that old that are outstanding?
I wouldn't want to speculate on what may have happened. It's one of the reasons I've invited Mr. Bezan to share that information with us. We'll get to the bottom of it.
All right. It's hard. Well, I don't have very much time left, and
that's true.
Well, then I want to comment on. There's so much I could get to, but C-58. You mentioned it in your opening remarks. The Information Commissioner of the day called it a step backward. She called it one that actually took away some of the access to information that existed before 58. So it was more than just a broken promise. It was a reversed promise of the 2015 election. But your government, you mentioned the order-making powers. Your government is presently refusing to comply with an order of the Information Commissioner and taking the information to court. Is that openness and transparency at work?
I don't,
Would love to answer that question, and if he can do it in 15 seconds, we're happy to entertain that. Otherwise, I'll move on.
I don't believe that matter arises from my department, and I don't have any information on it,